Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Food, Wine, and Travel Show, where we go across country and travel the world with members of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. Let's go. Welcome, everyone. You know, every second Friday, we get to go hang out with travel writers who are all members of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. I encourage you, if you are in the world of travel writing, food writing, wine writing, ooh, that's fun. That's what we're going to talk about today. Go check out IFWTWA.org, and they also work with destinations. And that show is every second Tuesday. But today we're excited to welcome Scott Kendall back on the show. He's the editor and publisher of PlayStayEat.com. And the last time he was on the show, he was talking about the Ozarks. Well, this time he went to France. He went to Reims and enjoyed champagne tasting in the morning, then enjoyed taking walks and dining during the midday, and then ended it up with, more champagne tasting. So we're not feeling too jealous or anything. Scott, did you have fun? Welcome back.
We had a great time. Welcome, Lisa.
Yeah, this is so cool. I mean, we're doing this at 11 in the morning as we record this, and I'm going, well, we could have had champagne because that's how you started your day. Does that feel good?
It felt real good for about 7 days straight. We had morning tastings and afternoon tastings. So we definitely had our fill of champagne, and we not only love the champagne, but it's just a beautiful country in northeastern France. Late May, perfect time of year. Weather was great. Couldn't ask for a better time.
Oh, man. So, you went to some of the most famous champagne houses as well. Did they give you some education as you were doing your tastings on how, they were, crafting the champagne and all of that good stuff? Because the whole method is so fascinating how it's made.
It really is. And every single one gave a presentation and explained the whole process. And you learned a little bit from each one, because even though obviously the main process is similar, there are differences between champagne houses, and some of the larger champagne houses may have done it one way, and some of the smaller boutique champagne houses maybe did a little bit differently. So it was very, very educational learning about the different approaches in making champagne.
So this was all part of a greater Europe trip, right?
Right. We were gone for 17 days. My wife's a college professor of nursing, and she always has a big break between her spring and summer semester. So that's usually when we always try to take a long trip during that time, usually to Europe. And so we took advantage of that. And last year, my wife was saying, I really would like to go to Champagne next time we go to France.
Like her thinking.
So being the good husband, I started doing a lot of research, talked to different people. My son and his wife had actually gone on their honeymoon to Epernay in the Champagne region. So they had a few recommendations. So between that and lots of Google searches and just kind of exploring, I picked 10 different champagne houses that we had tours and tastings at in Reims and Epernay.
See, I said Reims. See, I always get it wrong. I can't.
Well, that's how I always said it when I first looked at it, and then I've been educated, and my son says actually the proper way to say it is Reims, but you got to get that French, that guttural.
Ooh.
But anyways, Reims is how I say it now, and I think that's the proper way for an American to say it. But I'm sure I'm a little bit off.
Well, I'm just going to apologize for me, like personally, because I'm not good at it. Even Louisiana gives me problems, But
Sure.
We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But going to Reims, you say it's only like 45 minutes out of Paris or Paris, should we say?
Yeah. It's a very popular just day trip for people that are in Paris, because you can get on the train and be there in 45 minutes, like you said. There's so many champagne houses that are close to each other that you can easily make a day of it, and then either, spend a night or two, or go back to Paris and spend the night there.
The cathedrals look amazing, going into just the historic buildings themselves, and going to the champagne houses, their buildings look like they should all be on the National Historic Register. And I'm sure they are.
Right. Many of them are on the UNESCO list, and very, very historic areas. And you mentioned the cathedral. Everybody thinks of Notre Dame, the one in Paris, which is obviously pretty cool. We did go there afterwards. But anyways, the one in Reims is where French kings were coronated for hundreds of years. I think 25 French kings were coronated in Reims. So it was actually kind of the the capital or headquarters of a lot of the French, country or what I don't know if it was a country back then. So, yeah, it has a lot of history going back. Unfortunately, a lot of it was destroyed during World War One. They have rebuilt it, so it's still you get a semblance of what it was like even back hundreds of years, but it's, definitely one of the top cathedrals, in Europe.
And so you're in all of this history, and then the champagne houses themselves, very historic. And then you've got to think this is the only place that can call it champagne. Like this
E
is
e
the
e
place. And so someone had the bright idea of making champagne. Let's
Yes,
make
yes,
this.
and a lot of different people are given with, credit with it. Dom Perignon was
Mhm.
a monk, and a lot of times he's given credit with actually kind of discovering or inventing. They were actually trying to get rid of the bubbles, trying to figure out ways to do that,
Right.
and then I guess as time went on, they thought, actually the bubbles are kinda nice to have, and so there were a lot of different processes they went through. Madame Clicquot from Veuve Clicquot, was very instrumental in the beginning of the champagne process, and she, invented riddling, where they rotate the
Mhm.
bottles, and then, they have to disgorge to get rid of the sediments. We had several demonstrations and explanations of how that's done,
Mhm.
which was very interesting. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into getting that final glass of,
Yeah. Because it's perfection amongst the impurities.
exactly, yes,
You
yes, you
know,
gotta separate them.
yeah, it's just kind of like cheese and it all goes well. And apparently you had one of the best cheese, boards ever.
Oh,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
we'll get to your Michelin star experience in a second too, but didn't she meet up with Dom Perignon? Weren't they like didn't they kind of rub shoulders when they were creating this process for champagne at some point?
I think they knew of each other, and
Yeah.
I don't know how close their relationship was, but they were both definitely instrumental in getting everything started and perfecting the process.
So now do you look at champagne a little differently, having gone like to her champagne house, right? And
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have it
I
on New
do.
Year's or special occasions, brunch or just for fun. And we have it over here, but then having gone there and experienced the history, it's got to have like just like that extra value to it.
Yeah, I think it really does. In fact, yesterday was my wife's birthday, and my son
Happy
and
birthday.
daughter-in-law. I'll
Yeah.
let Julie know. But anyways, my son and daughter-in-law, the ones that had recommended some of the champagne houses to us, they came over for dinner last night. I made chicken piccata. I should have done something French, but anyways, they brought over some champagne, and it's a rosé champagne, which I think is my wife's favorite. So, but yeah, now when I drink it, I think a lot of the memories come back of, how it's made, and, what the different varieties are and what makes it dry or sweeter, or, the different variations. So I do look at it differently, and, I'm by no means a sommelier. And I don't know that much about the technicalities of wine and champagne, but I do enjoy a glass now and then. It is, I think, kind of sweetens the experience when you know a little bit more about the history.
Historically, they use champagne just to for I have a friend from Germany and her mom, she would go over, from the States back to Germany, and her mom was elder at the time and going through like, high blood pressures. All of us can start to end up in that zone, right? Well, in
Right.
Germany, and her doctor said either have a very light, like a Riesling or something, like a half a glass of champagne in the morning. And he recommended that as like have that in the morning, see how it affects you, and apparently did wonders. So I'm just saying, I wonder if historically they knew this is a way to keep everything calm and in balance, is start your day with champagne.
Well, if it's not true, I think it should be.
I'm all good. I'm even champagne and cheese sounds good. Strawberries, chocolate.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah. So when you were at the tasting houses, do they do like different kinds of pairings or anything like that to teach you about the pairings of champagne and like maybe fruits or cheeses, that kind of thing?
Well, they do, and a lot of them offer, like, different types of tours. Like, some are you just have the tours, and then you have the champagne without any food at all, and then there are some that offer pairings where, they specifically pair the champagne with a cheese or another food. Most of our tastings that we actually went to the champagne houses did not include food, but when we went to any restaurant, when we went to Arbane, our Michelin-starred restaurant, they definitely had a pairing with each, food, and explained how they
Oh.
pair. So I think it definitely is an important aspect of champagne is pairing it with the right food. Now, sometimes you just want to sip a glass by itself, but a lot of times you do have it with a meal or a snack or in the evening or the morning, whenever.
Or you know what? Basically, anytime. Let's get over it. We're all world travelers, so our clocks are different, right?
Right.
That's how I look at
Exactly.
it. Well, you've got a great article and photos, and everyone, you can see that up on blendradioandtv.com. The link is in the episode notes. So getting into there, so you went to Clicquot. I don't know if I'm not going to pronounce any of these. Pomeray, am I even saying that right? I'm going to
I
be
think you're
in.
right.
Okay, so Pomeray, was that? Tell us a little bit about them, because you went to Mum, you went to Lanson, or do they pronounce that different too?
Uh,
Tatinger, oh,
J.
Tatanjay. Okay, let's start with Tatanjay, because that's so. This is on a Roman chalk quarry.
Yeah, the whole
Wow.
area of the Champagne area where Reims and Epernay and the other little villages in the Champagne area, they're built on top of a bunch of chalk geography, terroir.
Yeah.
But anyways, they have dug hundreds of kilometers of tunnels and caves underneath the cities. And at various times they've been used. Sometimes they've actually lived down there. They've stored like food products. But as far as champagne, it's like the perfect temperature and humidity for aging the
Mm.
champagne. So that's one reason why all those tunnels were built was specifically for the aging the champagne.
Oh, how cool! That is really cool to see that. Now, so that was the Tatinger. Did I say that right?
Cat and J.
Tatanjay. Oh,
And
see,
I
got
could
my
be
M's.
saying it wrong too, so I'm doing
Okay, again, our apologies. And every time we say something wrong, have a sip of champagne, right?
there you go.
So the Clicquot one, they have a cafe, right? On site
They
too.
do, and Clicquot was one that we were especially interested in. That's the one where my son and daughter-in-law spent part of their
Mm.
honeymoon, and they came back and they said, you got to go," and you can get their yellow label champagne almost anywhere in the United States. So we were already familiar with that also, but the other thing that makes Veuve Clicquot so interesting is Madame Clicquot, who was basically the fundamental. Basically, when she was 27 years old, her husband passed away. And so at 27 years of age, she took over the champagne house and basically grew it into what it is today. She was very, very innovative, very creative, had a lot of relationships with people in Russia, in fact, and a lot of Napoleon's soldiers were fans of her champagne. And so one of her biggest customers in the beginning was actually the military and the aristocracy in Russia. And so that's one way she kind of got started and just had just a really sharp business mind when it came to growing and processing and marketing her products.
You know, I love her story, and I know we've touched on it years ago on the show, but what I think is so fascinating is we look at women in wine now. It's like, yes, we've got more women in wine over the last 10 years, right, than that what we've seen typically. There's been some standout like women like at Messina Hoff, not far from where you are, right?
Right.
You know, so there's a lot of women that are in there or somehow, maybe not on the front end or something like that, but they're doing something in a winery. And when we think back to what she was doing, this was so long ago, and she was pretty much, I think, one of the first women in wine that we know.
She really was, and it was unusual in that day for women to be involved in business
Any business,
really at
yeah.
all. So not only in wine and champagne, but also in the world of business. She was ahead of her time, and it's fascinating. We've actually listened to an audiobook about the Widow Clicquot during our travels.
Oh,
So a lot of
cool.
times we listen to books. My wife was intrigued by her, and I thought, well, let's pop it in. And so we listened to about 10 hours of Clicquot and learned a lot about the history of that particular champagne and
Mm.
her life. So it's very fascinating. If you're into biographies or like to learn about the business side of it, definitely worth a read or a listen.
Well, isn't that part of it too? When you go, you kind of want the story of the people who make the wine or the champagne,
Exactly.
part of
Otherwise,
that.
it's just a building. It's just a bottle with more champagne. But when you have the story behind it, and then you mentioned Veuve Clicquot has a cafe, and A lot of the places don't have their own
Mm.
cafe. Some do, but a lot don't. But it's so nice to walk out their front door, and then they have these yellow and white striped umbrellas, which is kind of their symbol. We had a sunny burger with some
Wow.
champagne, and the weather was great, and it was just like that's what you want to do when you go to Champagne, in my mind.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's yeah. Now tell us a little bit about Mum because Mum is such a huge name as well.
It really is. It's also one of the larger ones. Mum was actually fairly close to our B&B. So our
Mm.
first day, we walked to Lanson, had a champagne tasting there. Then we had lunch at Arbane, took a little
Mhm.
break, and then walked over to Mum. And Mum, they have their famous red sash, which is sort of their homage to the French Foreign Legion. So
Oh,
whenever you see their bottles or any advertisements, you'll see the red sash for Mum. But uh, that was our second tasting, so each one just seemed to add on to our experience, and I would definitely recommend Mum as one of the champagne houses to visit.
wow. This is cool. This is cool history. So, Lanson, what was that like? And then we got to go to the Michelin star.
Exactly. Yeah, Lanson, it's kind of on the outskirts of Reims. It's like a 20-minute walk from the
Hmm.
cathedral, but it's still in the city. But when they first developed it, it was kind of out in the country. It's kind of like a
Oh,
lot
okay.
urban sprawl that we get in the United States. You start out, far away from the city, and then it grows out towards you. But Lanson actually has their own vineyard at the Champagne House, which is very unusual for because all these champagne houses are within the city of Reims.
Okay.
So we had a little tour of the vineyard itself.
Cool.
Walk down the stairwells, and you're almost always going down 20 or 30 meters underground to get into the tunnels and the caves where the cellars are. So that was a great experience. We met a couple of ladies who were like having like a high school reunion. One lived in New York, one lived in London, and they decided to meet in France and revisit the old days. But we had a nice
Yeah.
tasting with them and talked about New York and London and travels around the world. But Lanson was one thing I want to mention is none of the places we went to were like snotty or sometimes you think, well,
Yeah.
you're going to go there and are you going to be
At first
fine?
time, as a first timer, that would
Exactly,
it could
yeah.
be intimidating. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, but once we had gone to a few, it's very casual. There were some people that were fairly dressed up, but most people were just your typical tourists.
Mm.
Wearing jeans or nice shirts, but nothing. They didn't come in tuxedo,
Yeah, yeah, that's
tuxedos and black tie. Yeah.
yeah, we don't want that. We want to still enjoy the champagne.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
we did. It was the guides were very good, and one thing I found interesting about the guides is they were from all over. They weren't. Oh, there were
Mm.
several that were from France, but we had a guide from Armenia. We had a guide from somewhere, and I believe it was Morocco. And
Wow.
and and so it was interesting to hear their story too. Like, what brought you to the Champagne area? But it's like
That's
any
cool.
other tourist area. I guess you bring people in not only to visit, but also the people that work there oftentimes are from other countries.
I love that part of travel, when you get to meet people from different places. And a lot of people emigrated to France as well, depending on where they're from. So it was an escape place at one point. Before we get to your five-star meal, let's talk about Renard. I hope I'm saying that. This is the oldest champagne house founded in 1729. Wow.
Yeah, 1729. So yeah, it's and although it's the oldest, if you first go there, you would never know that. They actually went through a major renovation, and so it's very modern right now, which is
Mm.
almost an oxymoron from being the oldest and yet also the newest in some senses. But they have a beautiful showroom. The lobby is a curved glass building with ceiling to floor windows,
Mm.
overlooks a courtyard that has different artwork, and the tasting room is in one of the side areas. And to me, when they have lots of artwork, I say most of the tasting rooms in wine champagne houses did have quite a bit of artwork, but I think Runart was one of the top ones as far as the types and the variety of artwork that they had.
Well, their name has art in it.
Maybe that's why.
No, I'm just saying it's Renard. So, okay, so let's go to your food. Speaking of art, they're also on the chalk quarries too. So a lot of them,
Yeah,
wow.
basically they all are. Yeah, they all have some kind of, because that's the main material underneath. So almost all of the champagne houses are on top of quarries
Yeah.
or chalk
Chalk.
tunnel.
But she's now another madam. So you got two champagne madams. Not that kind of madam,
Pommery.
everyone. Just say
Yeah.
madame. Yeah.
Yeah. So a very similar situation. She was married, her husband passed away. She took over the business and she expanded Pommery quite a bit. She was responsible for a lot of the construction of the tunnels and the different infrastructure needed for them to expand. So yeah, Madame Pommery was another big
Wow.
woman name, a big woman, a
Uh-oh.
big name who happens to be a woman.
Yeah, we're going to clean that up. But that's, I love this. This is now it's going to have to go on our Women Making History podcast as well,
It
because
should.
this is, I mean, that's the thing. We forget about that while we're going, hey, we don't have that many women in wine. Well, guess who started? We're at the forefront. So that's exciting to hear. So, all right. So let's go back to, because I know everyone wants to hear about this. Back to your Bain. Am I Arbane, right?
I say Arbane, and to be honest, I'm not sure if that's correct, but I think it is.
Okay. All right. So this is Chef Philippe Millet.
Yes, he's a superstar among chefs in France, which there's so many in France that you really have to
Yeah.
stand out to be a superstar. He was actually at Les Crayères, which is a big hotel in Reims, and they have two main restaurants, Les Parcs and Les Jardins. And he was the head chef, the executive chef there for many years and earned a Michelin star at those restaurants. About a year and a half ago, he decided to start his own restaurant. So he left Les Crayères and went to and formed Arbane. So it's this big white former mansion, and it's right in the middle of Reims, right in the middle of the city. But if you go to the rear of the restaurant, it's like an oasis. There's green trees and green grass, and there's
Oh, nice.
umbrellas, there's flowers, and you never know you're in the middle of a bustling city. Anyway, so Philippe Millet started Arbane about a year and a half ago, and it's already recognized by a lot of critics as the #1 restaurant in Reims.
Wow.
So, and after eating there, I can see why. I mean, I'm certainly no expert on Michelin, but everything, not only, I think when you think Michelin, the first thing you think of is obviously the food's going to be good and tasty, but also it's very artistic. It's very,
Hmm.
when they bring something out from the serving dish to, the design of the food, how it's arranged, everything's so meticulous. And I think to be a Michelin-starred chef, you have to have that artist, not only be able to cook, but you have to have that sense of symmetry and have that artistic juice to make that work.
Yeah, because one of the meals you were talking about, I think there was one of them. It was like the vitriol. I don't know what I'm saying now. See,
Yes.
this was carpaccio. Okay, so I can say that one. So this was something that goes towards the cathedral. So it was like an homage to the cathedral. This is interesting.
Right. It's one of his trademark dishes. And if you go to the cathedral in Reims, there's this big round rose-colored stained glass window. And so the dish you were talking about, the vitrelle, is homage to that stained glass window.
Mm.
And if you look at it, you can kind of see that, it's very
Wow.
intricate in the design, and it's included in the photos and in the article. But that's one example of something that, it's so pretty, you kind of hate to eat it. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to break it up
Mess it
and,
up.
chew on it because it's just so pretty to look at.
Wow. And the cathedral, wasn't Joan of Arc there?
In 1429, I think it was, she was there for the coronation of Charles VII. So yeah,
Wow.
she was there for it, which is funny. I had actually been to the cathedral in Rouen also, where Joan of Arc was burned at the stake. So
Oof.
I've been to a couple places where I'm following Joan of Arc around France.
Wow. Good luck with that one. Just you stay safe when you do that.
I'll do my best.
I want to go back though to your amazing dishes at this restaurant because you also the cheese cart. So the cheese cart, because I think France has to really be, obviously the Dutch are really good at cheese too in Switzerland. But is it really true when you go to France and you taste the cheese there that it is night and day compared to what we get here?
Well, it's night and day compared to what I normally get here. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely I noticed a difference. And then of course,
We've got some good cheesemongers out here, so I'm not knocking our cheeses,
we do, and my wife's from Wisconsin, so they
Oh
do
yeah, I
great
can't, I
cheese
gotta be
curds
nice.
and other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's such a part of their culture that, and when you go to a fine restaurant, they pick the best of the best, so you know what you're getting is going to be high quality. And I've had good cheeses here in America too, like you said. But we tried 3 or 4 different samples. There was the Rofer, several that I can't even pronounce. They had a goat cheese from a local cheesemaker that was very, very good. So yeah, I mean, I could easily sit there and just have cheese and champagne for a meal.
Okay.
But in this case, we had a lot of other stuff to eat too. So, we did sample the cheese, and it is excellent.
So you did go to Les Jardins, right, as well?
Yes.
So you went to his other restaurant that he was at.
Right, right. He had been gone for about a year and a half, and
Mhm.
so obviously there's another executive chef there that's very good. But I think they still have a lot of. I mean, he'd been there for so long. I'm sure a lot of the recipes and ways of
Mm,
making things are similar to what Chef Millie had done when he
mhm,
was at Les Jardins. Les Jardins, it's very close to Pommery, which was
mhm.
our last. Wine tasting. So it's very convenient to walk across the street, go to Les Jardins, have another good meal. We ate a lot of good stuff.
Well, it's a lot of walking to do too, so that balances it out.
It is, yeah. I'm sure we walked, 5 or 6 miles a day, and it does add up.
Well, you had a good time. That's what I can tell. I mean, just even when writing what you ate, it's like, okay, wow, okay. It's like everything is attention to detail, it seems like. And you're eating you're eating pollock in a Thai style sauce. So, I mean, so not everything is 100% French, which is something people would think.
Right. They do have a lot of other influences. There's a lot of Indonesian folks in Paris and in France in general. So there's a lot of Indonesian influence. In fact, I think the chocolate dessert we had at Les Jardins was called Indonesian chocolate. So I don't know if that's because the chocolate was from Indonesia or it just
Could
had an
be.
Indonesian influence. But yeah, there's a lot of Indonesian and Middle Eastern and other influences on French cuisine.
So going to France, I only went when I was a little girl and it was in between planes, different flights. But the way I butcher French, and I really do apologize to, everyone in France. I haven't learned it yet, So when, going there, if we're stumbling over words, what is the reception to that? Do people help? Do you just go look at this on my Google Translator and point? How is the communication for travelers go, especially for first timers?
Right, right. Yeah, I think number one for me, no matter where I travel to, if you smile and you're friendly, that's to me, that's the best start to any conversation, no matter who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And I find that almost everyone that, they realized right away that I don't speak French or whatever it is, and they usually smile back. And so most of the time they speak English, but there are times where you get a waiter or someone, a shopkeeper, and they don't speak English. So you kind of do your best to communicate. My wife is very good at the Google Translate. I haven't mastered it yet. I use it now and then. But anyways, so she will actually use that, and that's very helpful. If you find you're in a situation where the other person just doesn't speak, they're not going to understand you, and you're not going to understand them. I think Google Translate is a great idea, and that they seem to be receptive to that. I mean, again, they understand. If you're being pushy and like, why the hell can't you understand me?
Oh,
Yeah, that would definitely put people off. But if you
the
smile,
ugly American tourist. Don't be that.
right, right, and there's some of them
Yeah.
out there. But again, on both sides, I think the Americans and the French are very accepting of people that maybe don't speak the language.
I think when you're trying to do it, trying to learn it, and you're fumbling around, it's funny. You know what I mean? It is funny
It is. Well,
that they know
we
you're
actually,
trying.
yeah, actually, I tried to learn some French on my first visit to France about 3 or 4 years ago, and I couldn't make any sense of it. It just, the sounds and the way they went together, and I tried to at least learn some basics, and I can say
Hmm.
sure, but beyond that, it's a very difficult language to me for whatever reason. So I still try to pick up some phrases here and there, but by no means very good at it.
Yeah, even going to Louisiana, I'm still in trouble with that. And I have friends always teaching me. And then I got the accents a little bit better than, the French part of it. So I know for the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association, you've worked on some of the conferences in the past and been on shows what they do their annual conference. And you're traveling this year, but this year it's going to be in Lafayette, Louisiana. So there will be a lot of French spoken in that region, right? And you've been there. So, yeah.
There is. I mean, definitely most people all speak English. Yeah, my wife and I went in April. Leighton LeBlanc, who's the PR lady for Lafayette, was very good at setting up an itinerary for us and met with us and explained about all the different things that are available in Lafayette in the area. And it's a very fun area. I mean, it's just the food, the music, the dancing. A lot of history, obviously, a lot of French influence. It's one of my favorite places. Love to go back.
Well, it's the happiest city, isn't it? So, I mean,
The happiest city in America.
yeah.
So I'm sure there's a reason why they've earned that moniker.
So everyone, the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association conference is coming up in October. You don't have to be a member, but you might as well become one. So just go to IFWTWA.org, and you've been to conferences before. So this is something really good for destinations and the travel writer, right? To kind of connect with each other.
It really is, and you meet a lot of the insiders that really know the city and the area. So it's not like you're just a typical tourist. You drive in for a few days and visit. You have access to a lot of the folks that really know the city and kind of get you into the right places and the right people to talk to, and it just makes for a really great time.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it was good to have you back on the show. And I'm just going to close with, yes, we are a little jealous of your champagne adventures in France. I mean, how awesome is that? Again, everyone, the link is in the episode notes for Scott's article. You can see the pictures and everything he was talking about. And you can also go and learn more about his European adventures. Go to his website, playstayeat.com. Thank you so much. It's been fun. And now I want to have some champagne.
Well, thank you. Well, I promise you, I did save some champagne for others, so it's safe to go there and enjoy.
All right. Well done. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Food, Wine, and Travel Show featuring members of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. We encourage you to visit their website. We say IFWTWA, which is IFWTWA.org. You can also follow us at bigblendradio.com. Happy travels, everyone!